daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the daily Manchester United podcast. I'm your host for this solo pod this evening, Niall, and it's Champions League week and the Champions League is back and United aren't in it and it's very, very depressing. I'm 10-15 minutes after watching the Atletico Madrid-Liverpool game there and also tuning into the other scores around Europe this evening. And I have to say, it is gutting that we're not involved in it. I mean, it's bad enough when we're involved in Europa League, but when you're not involved in any Europe or particularly the Champions League, it's a bitter pill to swallow. It's a tough to take, so it is. And I was kind of watching those games and the quality on show and just kind of thinking about how far off it we are at the moment, even competing, in the top half of the table, never mind getting into Champions League qualification and then ultimately competing in the top competition in Europe. And that is a big reality check, really, when you think of how far we really need to go in order to get up the table and then get in there and start competing. So every time the Champions League rolls around, it kind of brings you back to reality of where we are at the moment and how far we need to go. But I thought to put some sort of a United spin on this, I thought I'd go back to the 10 years ago, because we always do that kind of whenever we're going back in time, do the 10-year classic and have a look at our first game in the Champions League during that season. So that would have been the 2015-2016 season. Not going to lie, not the most inspiring game when I looked it up this evening, but a game nonetheless, and a game in the Champions League. It was on the 21st of October 2015, and just checking, I actually had the wrong game up there, but we're going back to match day 1, and it's even less inspiring than I thought it was. I was looking at match day 3, a 1-1 draw with CSKA Moscow, but I found the right page now, and it's even worse. It is a game that was played in September, on the 15th September, against PSV Eindhoven, away to PSV Eindhoven, and it was 2-1. We lost 2-1. And it's funny kind of looking back because at the time, we're in Champions League football. Van Gaal's the manager. United haven't done that well over the last few seasons since Ferguson's left. And you're thinking, United are nowhere near this in terms of where we want to be. And then you look at now and it's just, you die to get back into that position of where they were. But if we dive in a bit deeper into this match, so the game was 2-1. Hector Moreno scored for PSV and Narsing as well scored for PSV. But we actually opened the scoring with Memphis Depay. I mean, what a throwback. He's been mentioned a few times in our episodes with top 10 Dutch players that would have played for United. Don't think he was ranking too high in that. Has had an interesting career, but was a big kind of move for us at the time and hoping that he would kind of pay off, but it never really happened for us. But it's an interesting one. I mean, starting off the campaign 2-1 wasn't ideal. It's also interesting looking back at the squad we had back then, and similar to what I was saying earlier. If we were looking at during the time of this, we'd be like, the team has completely fallen off here. But you'd be cutting someone's arm off to be in this position now. So looking at the team, let's just go through from the goalkeeper into the whole way through the squad. So David De Gea nets. I mean, he was kind of in his pomp back then. To be fair, he was growing into his prime and kind of in his prime as well, to be honest. Really, really good goalkeeper. Then we had the whole similar with kind of going for a back 3 / ball playing defenders, bringing in a few Dutch players as well. We had Daley Blind, Mr. kind of Ajax Academy. So he was playing left back. We had Chris Smalling. We had Marcus Rojo. And we had Matteo Darmian. I mean, that backline's not filling you with confidence. So it's pretty rough. In midfield, then we have Juan Mata, Ander Herrera, and Bastian Schweinsteiger. I mean, once again, Schweinsteiger, we were mentioning him on the pod last night, actually, in terms of him being a really expensive shirt to get printed out. But I was a big fan of Schweinsteiger, but just not at United. I mean, we got him when he was pretty much at the end of his career. He was able to put in a bit of a shift and was a good technically, but it was not the long term kind of transfer that we needed at the time. Ander Herrera, I think, was quite underrated for us, and probably could have hung about at the club a bit longer. Had a good career, went on, and then Juan Mata was actually quite good for us as well. But once again, probably had his strongest years at Chelsea before joining Man United. And then in the front line, I mean, obviously with the goal scorer, Memphis Depay with the goal there, but Ballon d'Or clause Anthony Martial is playing probably down the middle here. Memphis Depay off the left. And then we have Ashley Young playing as well. For any of you listening, Ashley Young and our fantasy football kind of crossover here as well. Ashley Young was always a staple in my fantasy football teams, especially as he went back into that fullback position, because he was on every set piece going, and we kind of looked to bomb forward. But 10 years ago, Ashley Young was a flying winger, had a decent career at United, obviously being signed from Aston Villa, very flashy winger, and did quite well for us. But yeah, just really interesting looking back at that team. I mean, even you go back to Matteo Darmian. I mean, Darmian was still playing away for Inter in Champions League finals just last season. Luke Shaw still was coming onto that team as well. A player that's still around the club. Suffered with a lot of injuries, of course, but yeah, just a really interesting time and a really interesting squad to look back on. I mean, Chris Smalling went to Italy, played there for years. And then you kind of look at the substitutes. So the substitutes that came on, we had Marouane Fellaini, the David Moyes panic signing the year after Fergie. We had Antonio Valencia coming on for Ashley Young in that game as well. Valencia's an interesting one. Started off as a winger, then kind of was effective, but maybe wasn't the most technically gifted as other wingers that we would have had, and then kind of went back into more of a fullback role. And was pretty effective there. Strong, powerful runner, and had good energy up and down the right hand side there. But when you look at the other defenders, Morgan Schneiderlin, what a throwback that is. I mean, signed. Need to check this now, but I think he was signed from Southampton and then went on to play for Everton. But I need to double check that now because I don't want to make a mistake on it. But yes, he did come from Southampton. 231 appearances for Southampton, 14 goals. Then came to United 2015 to 2017. So he just would have signed that season. 32 appearances, 1 goal, and then went to Everton in 2017 for 3 seasons, played 73 times, scored 1 goal. So, a decent midfielder. Probably needed to bolster up a bit there. As we had Michael Carrick on the bench as well. He was coming towards the end of his career. Sergio Romero got a big shout out last night on the episode, on our special Argentina episode, if you're interested in tuning into that. And then we had Paddy McNair, who had come through the academy at United, who was kind of a young player at the time. So yeah, it's I thought I would kind of go back just to see, what were we like 10 years ago, and I think if you were to ask United fans back there, you'd say we're in the dark ages. We're struggling here. Obviously, there was probably a couple of injuries. I think Rooney obviously wasn't available for this game, but it's concerning when we were saying we were in really, really struggling and nearly in our banter era, as other clubs would say, back in 2015. And if we were in our banter era back then, what are we now? But yeah, it's an interesting one. Things weren't too bad after that. I mean, I say that back in 2015, we had 2-1 loss to Eindhoven. Then we had 2 weeks later, we had a win 2-1 against Wolfsburg. Within that game, we actually had Juan Mata getting a penalty, and we had Chris Smalling getting on the score sheet as well. Then we had the game that I was going to start with that I completely got wrong, which was the CSKA Moscow away 1-1. We had Martial grab a goal there, and Doumbia scored for CSKA Moscow. For any of the FIFA fans, he was a bit of a cult hero when it comes to that. Then in the return fixture, we beat CSKA Moscow 1-0, and we then drew with PSV. And then we carried on and we lost to Wolfsburg 3-2, which was quite horrific, actually. But yeah, interesting to look at this game and look at the lineup in this game. We had Jesse Lingard playing. We had Nick Powell coming on. We had Varela playing. We had Borthwick Jackson playing. You know, these were tough times for United fans, and we were in Champions League, and we were kind of obviously not doing well in the Champions League, but we were still kind of been able to compete in and around that top tier of the Premier League at least, which is just deeply concerning. But anyway, I thought it would be interesting to kind of take a look back at 10 years ago of our own Champions League campaign, because like I mentioned at the top of the show, looking at the standard of football in that league, in that Champions League at the moment, is just really tough to take when it's just so clear that we're very, very far off it. If Chelsea are losing 3-1 to Bayern Munich tonight, and Chelsea are one of the best teams in the Premier League, and we're going there at the weekend, I mean, let's see what happens. But it doesn't augur well. It doesn't augur well anyway. But we'll take a quick break here and be back with a small bit more of this Champions League special, which United are not in.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimize your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body is unique.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Just looking into a bit more detail on that pretty horrific Champions League run, that group stage that we had back in 2015-16 season. Times were tough. I mean, we were already looking at bringing Rooney back into more of a deep lying midfield role. In the drawn game against PSV at home at Old Trafford, he's lining up in midfield with Schweinsteiger and Schneiderlin. So, we kind of playing within that number 10 position, but very much in the midfield also, and looking to kind of have some creativity within there. Still going with, Memphis Depay and Jesse Lingard and Anthony Martial as well. I mean, it really is a pity with Martial. He scored a couple of times within that campaign that season, and was such a promising player. I mean, we had those goals against Liverpool on his debut at Old Trafford. We had I joked at the Ballon d'Or clause within his contract as well, but super technically gifted, had so much potential, just absolutely marred with injuries. And it's a tough one. I mean, it ended quite, kind of went out on a limp at United, getting his move last season. And it just never really working out for him, which was disappointing. But at the time, I mean, back in 2015-16, he was lauded as our kind of savior at the time, and just kind of putting all our hopes in that basket until kind of Rashford came around a couple of years later. So, I basically wanted to, cheer myself up this evening after watching the Champions League and watching the other English teams competing within that. But then when you go back 10 years and you look at the United team, it's the same issues as now. You're looking at them going, I don't really have any faith in that team. And it kind of emphasizes that this struggle since Fergie has been going on for a long, long time. And it's well over a decade now. When you're kind of looking back, you're going, oh, surely the good days were still within the decade, but that they're not. And things aren't looking to get any better at the moment. There's been a lot of talk of, if Amarin has a few games left, what are some of the managers that are going to come in? And I'm sure in one of the episodes we'll kind of talk through some of those options and what they might look like. But in terms of us getting back to the top and getting into even Champions League, league format now or whatever, they're not group stages anymore. But being able to get in there and actually compete, we're a long way away from it. And yeah, I think if I'm trying to bring any positivity to United fans at the moment, it's a tough job. It's a tough job. I'm sorry I can't provide it for you, but I thought I was going to cheer myself up with these results, and it looked like we didn't actually get through the group stages in 2015. But here we are. We keep moving. But anyway, thank you very much for listening. We're going to have a couple of episodes coming up towards the Chelsea game. We're going to have a preview of the Chelsea game. Let's just hope Garnacho doesn't score, and we'll go from there. But we have to keep moving, and we have to keep the faith, because there's nothing else we can do. So thank you very much for listening. If you're interested, tune into the social media channels that we have, GSPN Man United, and start some debates and conversation in the comments section, as always. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next one.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.